This should be hiked, says Chandra Shekhar Nopany, the chairman of Birla Sugar. Also, Manisha Gupta spoke to him about the poor state of the textile industry in the country and the need for long-term ethanol blending. Listen in.
I think as far as this sector is concerned, we have now come to a situation where there is a good balance as far as the raw materials is concerned. You would have noticed that earlier that every year the sugar industry has been a glut-like situation. Now I think we have come to a fair balance, and I think going forward, a kind of a predictable policy is set out which can help everybody plan properly as to how they want the industry to grow. Ethanol has come in a big way right now, and ethanol, I think the target by the government is to come to 20% blending by 2025. I think we're hitting a figure of 13.5% now. Hopefully next year, once they are able to allow us to produce more ethanol, we should hit 15 to 18%. But I think, laying out a plan that, okay, you want us to come to this kind of a level, so let's say 25% blending or 20% blending, then set up a roadmap for it. And I think that is what the industry is looking for.
And do you think 20% is doable by next year?
I think it would be a little bit of a challenge because a lot would depend upon the kind of sugar production which we are looking at this season. We are just in the month of July, ending July at the moment. We've still got August and September of the rainy months to go by. And one thing which I think all of us need to appreciate, and that's where the government role comes in, is that sugar is a staple essential product and we can't be short of it. So looking at that, I think the government policies would depend to a large extent on what kind of sugar production we're looking at in the country. The general expectation is that this year we are going to have enough stocks, so there should be no restriction as far as the government is concerned to come back to the policy of allowing us to make ethanol from B-heavy and even possibly looking at exports again. So let's see, I think probably after a month or two we'll get a better idea.
So, the concern about the industry right now is that the policies tend to change season by season, and that also is because one year you're having a good sugar year, the second year you're perhaps not having that. So are you looking at a kind of policy which doesn't change by season but is slightly more longer?
I wish it was possible, but the sugar industry is one industry which is plagued by so many variables. And variables which are beyond the control of human beings, like climatic conditions, floods if happens, drought happens, what's happening in Brazil, what's happening here. So a whole lot of factors come into play. So I don't think you can have a static policy. But what we would like to see is a predictability that the government will see, all right, we are looking at this. So, give us information well in advance after years, so that then one can adapt accordingly.
So that's about sugar, which really seems to be having a conversation with the government right now. What about textiles? Because this is another area that you look at. And, I was reading a data some time back that there are 4,000 perhaps ginning mills and 3,000 spinning mills in India, and not all of them are making profit and not all of them are getting their margins in. And then, of course, we've seen a huge price crash. This is another area where we've seen price volatility very, very huge. And if you look at the latest sowing numbers as well, they actually show you the farmer's dilemma.
Why is spinning or textiles in a difficult quandary today? It's simply because of global uncertainty. You've got a war in Ukraine, you've got the Israel-Hamas war happening over there. China has stopped by, and that has kind of, the uncertainty which has happened has reduced the buying, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in America and the other countries. And India being a large producer and a large exporter, we now have a situation where our exports is down. I'll give you a simple data that, for example, in dyed and spun yarn, for exports, we were down last year on 40% as an industry as a whole. And that is no small. And so what happens to that product? Either you dump it in the Indian market and prices collapse, or you shut down spindles. And that's what's basically happened. Some sectors of textiles are reasonably well placed because they have, they're able to make fabrics and export to certain countries. So, but that is only a few. But overall, I think quite a few of the textile players are struggling. And I think,
and what is the way forward then?
It's uncertainty. There is a lot of uncertainty here.
But what are the conversations with policymakers?
So, see, as far as the policymakers are concerned, I think Government of India has very limited incentives or taxes as far as the textile sector is concerned. it is basically a demand crunch which has taken place. There is a demand destruction which has happened. And I think once, hopefully, we are now seeing that there is some kind of stability coming around in the world. Once buying takes off as far as the international markets are concerned, which we are already started seeing a little bit of green shoots coming in. So hopefully by this third quarter of this year, we should start seeing an improvement.
So it is a wait and watch until then.
I think it's a wait and watch here.
How about fertilizers? That's another thing that you look at. So while the budget did talk about natural farming, we didn't hear too much about on this subject.
So I think fertilizer is again a very subsidy-based kind of product as far as India is concerned. And here, again, it is very, very finely controlled by the government. I think they're doing a pretty good job as far as managing it at the moment. There was a bit of shortage last year, and so the government has been able to import. There are budget constraints within the government as well. So, but I think they'll be able to tide over the current situation. But
with the budget now done, and we know what's coming in, and of course, there's going to be a lot of conversations until we see all of that implemented. But what do you see a couple of things that can happen outside budget?
So I think outside budget, I think more capacities are definitely needed within India. So a lot of plans are being there. Whether you take phosphatic fertilizers, we are importing fertilizers today. And a lot depends again on the international scenario, and international prices continue to be firm. China, again, there was a lot of volatility in prices here as well. In fact, China was earlier in the market, then they've gone out of the market, which created, again, a lot of topsy-turviness. So again, here it's a policy which I think the government has to wait and watch and see at what appropriate time when to buy. Because, see, it's a large outgo as far as the government of India is concerned, as far as the fertilizer subsidy is concerned. So, and you can't have a situation when there's going to be shortage in India. So it's going to be a tough act for the government to sort out. But I think they will come out with some policy now. Now that the budget is done, I expect they'll come out with some policy.
All right. So a lot of wait and watch here for a couple of sectors at least, that's as far as agriculture is concerned. But thank you, Mr. Nopany, so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
Okay, that is on the agriculture space. But getting back to the market.